we are going to look at tax administration in Nigeria. Tax administration in Nigeria. So the tax administration we want to look at is going to be based on the new Tax Reform Act. So when we talk about the tax administration, we are going to look at it based on what is stated in the new Tax Reform Act, like Nigeria Tax Administration Act, Joint Revenue Board Act, Nigeria Revenue Service Act. We consider some provision of those acts when we are looking at this tax administration in Nigeria. So the tax administration is shared among federal, state, and local governments in accordance with the Constitution as amended and 2025 tax reform law. So when we want to look at this tax administration, what do we mean by tax administration? What do you understand by tax administrations? Tax administrations means the administration, the management, the supervision and execution and application of the tax law of a country. So the process, it involves the administration, the management, conduct, direction, and supervision and application of the tax law in the countries. So tax administration also include the assessment, collection, enforcement, litigations, publication, and gathering of statistic data under the law. So what this means is that basically what the tax authority do in their daily operation, day-to-day operation, the tax authority, the Nigeria Revenue Service, the state internal revenue, what they do day-to-day in their operation is what is called tax administrations. How they raise assessment for taxpayer, how they conduct tax investigation and audit, how they carry out tax enforcement, how they engage in tax litigation. All of this is called tax administrations. So registration of taxpayer, assessment of taxpayer, monitoring and compliance, and so many other ones. So what are the functions of tax administration? Function of tax administration. Number one function of tax administration is registration of taxpayer. The tax administration, the tax authority, they will be the one to register taxpayers. They will be the one to register taxpayers, both company and individual. They will be the one to issue taxpayer ID. So registration of taxpayer is one of the functions that tax administration entails. It's one of the functions that it is performed by tax authority. When we talk about this function of tax administration, what we mean by this is, what are the functions that tax authority perform? So it's not limited to only Nigeria Revenue Service or Joint Revenue Board or State Internal Revenue Service. All of them together, what are their functions? We want to look at it together. That is what tax administration entails. So registration of the taxpayer is one of the functions of tax administration. Another function of tax administration is assessment of taxpayer. Tax administration, they are the one that will assess, tax authority are the one that will assess the taxpayer, that they will determine the amount of taxpayer will pay. They are the one that will review the return filed by the taxpayer. So They will check whether the tax return filed by the taxpayer is correct or wrong. So another function of tax administration is tax return. Tax administration, tax authority, they will receive the return filed by the taxpayer. Either the return is done on an annual basis or on a monthly basis. We have another function of tax administration called tax collections. Tax what? Collections. So it is tax authority that will collect the tax from the taxpayer. So they will ensure that the taxpayer make payment of tax. They will ensure that remittance of tax is done at the right time. At the right time. So that is that. Compliance monitoring. They monitor tax authority. They also monitor taxpayer. They monitor them, whether they are doing the right thing or not. Whether they are complying with the tax law or not. They go out for desk audits, review. They review the book and account of the taxpayer, so that they will determine whether they are doing the right thing, whether they are not understating their income, whether they are not overstating their expenses. Another function of tax administration is compliance enforcement. They enforce the tax law. They enforce the tax law. As we have now, we have the new tax law. It is the responsibility of tax authority to enforce those laws, to ensure that taxpayer, consultant, they comply with those laws. Another function of tax administration that we have is sanction. They sanction anybody that contravenes the law. Anybody that contravenes the tax law, they sanction them. They impose penalty on them. They impose interest on them, on the taxpayer that don't follow the tax law. So this is part of the function of tax administration. Tax education and awareness. They educate the taxpayer on what they need to know. They sensitize the public on the importance of taxation, why they need to pay tax. So tax education and awareness is part of function of tax administration. So you can be asked, what are the function of tax administration? See, they are stopping me, I'm doing lecture. What are the function of tax administration? You can be asked for that. Number 1, registration of taxpayer. Number 2, assessment of taxpayer. Number 3, tax return. Number 4, tax collection. Number 5, compliance monitoring. While number 6 is tax education and awareness. Number 7, sanction. Now, we have looked at function of tax administration as a whole. Now, let's look at relevant tax authority in Nigeria. Hello, please, can you hear me very well? Hello,
So we can hear
me?
you. We can
Okay,
hear
because
you.
some people sent a message now. We can't hear the lecturer. We can't do this. We can't do this. So please, let's take it easy. You understand? We all enjoy ourselves. You understand? We are all colleagues. We enjoy ourselves. So, relevant tax authority in Nigeria. Who are the relevant tax authority in Nigeria? Who are the tax authority who collect tax on behalf of the government in Nigeria? We want to look at them one by one, and we want to look at what they do, their function, and so on like that. For federal government, the relevant tax authority we have for federal government is Nigeria Revenue Service. Though apart from NRS, Nigeria Customs Service too also help government to collect tax. They help them to collect custom duties. So as we proceed from the class, we are going to do a topic called custom and excise duties. So my colleague, Mr. Wasil, is going to take you custom and excise duties. So when we look at relevant tax authority, one of the relevant tax authority we have for federal government is called Nigeria Revenue Service. Nigeria Revenue Service was formerly called Federal Inland Revenue Service. It was one of the tax reform acts that changed their name. If we check section 3 of Nigeria Revenue Service Establishment Act, is the one that now changed the name to Nigeria Revenue Service. Another tax authority that we have, that one is for state governments. It's called State Internal Revenue Service. The law that State Internal Revenue Service follow, the law that established this State Internal Revenue Service under the new tax law, the law that established this State Internal Revenue Service under the new tax law is called Joint Revenue Board Act 2025. Joint Revenue what? Board Act 2025. Apart from the state, for local governments too, who is the tax authority for local government? It is called Local Government Revenue Committee. Every local government will have their own local government revenue committee. And if you check the new tax law, the law that established the local government revenue committee under the new tax law is called Joint Revenue Board Act 2025. Joint Revenue Board Establishment Act 2025 is the one that established local government revenue committee. So these are the 3 tiers of government. For the 3 tiers of government, these are the relevant tax authority that we have. Apart from this relevant tax authority we also have some other tax regulator like Joint Revenue Board, like Tax Appeal Tribunal, like Tax Ombuds. We will look at them one by one. So now we will start from Nigeria Revenue Service, formerly called Federal Inland Revenue Service. Nigeria Revenue Service, like I said earlier, was established by Section 3 of Nigeria Revenue Service Act 2025, and they are body corporate. That means they are corporate entity. They stand on their own. They can be sued and be sued. Their name is registered as a legal entity, and they replace Federal Inland Revenue Service. What Nigeria Revenue Service do, they are responsible for administering taxes and revenue collectible by federal government. They are the one that help federal government to collect taxes and revenue. Now, what are the objectives of Nigeria Revenue Service? Why do we have Nigeria Revenue Service? What are the objectives of Nigeria Revenue Service? One of the objectives for us to establish Nigeria Revenue Service is to ensure efficient administration of federal taxes. To ensure what? Efficient administration of what? Federal taxes. Another objective of Nigeria Revenue Service is to improve taxpayer compliance. Is to improve what? Taxpayer compliance. Why another objective is to enhance revenue mobilization. They help government to increase revenue. If you are conversant with Business Day, last week there was a news that said for this 2025-2026 alone, based on the new Tax Reform Act, Nigeria Revenue Service have helped federal government to generate over, I think, 21 trillion naira within this 6 months or 7 months. They have generated for this year alone, as a result of the new tax law, post enactment of the new tax law, Nigeria Revenue Service have helped federal government to generate almost 21 trillion, which in the history of Nigeria, we have not had that. So, enhanced revenue mobilization is part of objective of Nigeria Revenue Service. Another objective of Nigeria Revenue Service is promotion of voluntary tax compliance. Promotion of what? Voluntary tax compliance. They help government to promote, to ensure that taxpayers they comply with the tax law voluntarily. It's not everything that have to do with enforcement. You have to appeal to people. You have to mediate to ensure that the taxpayer they comply. You have to tell them the relevance, the importance of tax, the purpose of tax if they comply. Another objective of Nigeria Revenue Service is digitalization of tax administration. They have objective to ensure that every tax we are paying is based on digital, is based on IT, technology. Everything we are doing in tax should be based on technology. We should not be using manual system, paper system again. They should ensure that all the tax system, tax procedure, tax process is digitalized. Reduction of tax evasion and avoidance. Nigeria Revenue Service, as part of the establishment, they have objective to reduce tax evasion. Tax evasion means illegal way of not paying tax. The illegal way of not paying tax by understating income, overstating expenses. Tax evasion is criminal. It's against the law and is punishable under the law. Tax avoidance means legal way of minimizing your tax liability within the jurisdiction of the law without breaking the law. You want to minimize tax liability. That means you take advantage of the loopholes in the tax law to minimize your tax liabilities. Strengthening of taxpayer services. Strengthening of taxpayer what? Services. Strengthening of taxpayer services is part of objective of Nigeria Revenue Service. Now, let's look at the function of Nigeria Revenue Service. When you talk about the function of Nigeria Revenue Service, if you look at Section 4 of Nigeria Revenue Service Act, Service Establishment Act 2025, it states out their function, what they need to do. One of the functions of Nigeria Revenue Service is to assess, collect, and account and enforce payment of taxes, revenue due to federal government. One of the functions of Nigeria Revenue Service is to assess, collect, account for, and enforce the payment of taxes and revenue due to the federal government. Another function of Nigeria Revenue Service is to administer and enforce all federal taxes law assigned to it. Is to administer and enforce all federal taxes law assigned to it. That means they will be the one to administer company income tax. They will be the one to administer petroleum profit tax. They will be the one to administer capital gain tax. They will be the one to administer hydrocarbon tax. They will be the one to administer the new tax that was just introduced called development levy tax. Another function of Nigeria Revenue Service is to register taxpayer and maintain a national database. They will register taxpayer and have a database of all the taxpayers in Nigeria. They also have a function that has to do with issue tax identification number and maintain taxpayer record. They issue tax identification number and maintain taxpayer record. One of the functions of Nigeria Revenue Service is also to conduct tax audits, investigation, and compliance monitoring. one of their function is to conduct tax audit, investigation, and compliance work monitoring. One of their function is also to promote voluntary tax compliance through taxpayer education and public enlightenment. To promote voluntary tax compliance through taxpayer education and what? Public enlightenment. So these are the functions of Nigeria Revenue Service. Part of their function is also to exchange tax information with relevant government agency and foreign tax authority. If we have a taxpayer, a resident of Nigeria, we have it outside Nigeria, they can exchange information with the foreign tax authority. If you have a relevant, they can also exchange tax information with government agency like EFCC, ICPC. Under the new tax law now, if anybody is found guilty of tax evasion, tax authority, Nigeria Revenue Service can ask EFCC to help them conduct investigation on that, on tax evasion. Or they can even ask ICPC to help them conduct investigation. So tax authority now, based on the new tax law, they are to partner with law enforcement agency. Prior to the new tax law, tax authority have been partner, they have a partnership with law enforcement agency. But right now, it is now clearly stated in the new tax law. When you look at the Tax Administration Act, there is a particular section there that talk about enforcement of tax that have to do with law enforcement agency like EFCC, ICPC, Nigeria Police Force, DSS, and so on like that. Hello, can you hear me very well?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. Another function of Nigeria Revenue Service is to advise federal government on tax policy. They advise federal government on tax policy, revenue administration. They advise federal government on tax policy and revenue administration. They also carry out any other function given to them from time to time. So, function of Nigeria Revenue Service, that is the function. However, we should be careful when we are looking at function of Nigeria Revenue Service. The function of Nigeria Revenue Service is different from power of governing board of Nigeria Revenue Service. Nigeria Revenue Service, they have a governing board. They have a governing board that govern their affair that help them to implement strategic decision. This governing board, they have their own function. But this function I mentioned earlier, it is the administrative function of Nigeria Revenue Service. It's not the strategic function. The strategic function is carried out by the Nigeria Revenue Service Governing Board. So a question can be asked, what are the functions of Nigeria Revenue Service Governing Board? Is different from the function of Nigeria Revenue Service. Hope my explanation is clear.
It's clear, sir.
Thank you. Now, power of Nigeria Revenue Service. What are their power? Under the Nigeria Revenue Service Act and Nigeria Tax Administration Act, the service has this following power. They have a power to register taxpayer. They have a power to assess tax. They have a power to demand and recover unpaid taxes. They have a power to appoint agents that will help them to collect tax. Agents that can help them to collect tax. If any taxpayer is proving stubborn, they can appoint EFCC, ICPC to help them collect tax. They also have a power to impose administrative penalties. If a taxpayer didn't pay tax on time, if a taxpayer didn't file tax return on time, they have a power to impose what? Administrative what? Penalties. They have a power to institute civil proceeding for tax recovery. That means they have a power to charge taxpayer to court. Eh? So these are the power of Nigeria Revenue Service. Now, we are still on Nigeria Revenue Service. Let's look at the governing board. The Nigeria Revenue Service governing board, their board. As a company has a board of directors, Nigeria Revenue Service too, they have a board called governing board. This board is established by Section 6 of Nigeria Revenue Service Establishment Act 2025. The Section 6 of that act is the one that established the board. And the board, like I said earlier, they are responsible for providing strategic direction and oversight for the services. The board is responsible for providing strategic direction and oversight for the services. What are the composition of the governing board? As stated in the Section 71 of Nigeria Revenue Service Act 2025, the composition includes the chairman of the service. That means the executive chairman of Nigeria Revenue Service, representative of government ministry and agency as prescribed by the Act, and other member appointed in accordance with the Act. So I'm going to, this composition, I'm still going to talk more about it when we move to another topic. Now, what are the power and function of governing board of Nigeria Revenue Service? So this is where we need to be careful. We have a power of Nigeria Revenue Service. We have a function of Nigeria Revenue Service. Those are the administrative power, administrative function. Now, this one is strategic, carried out by the board. So, examiner can ask, what are the function of Nigeria Revenue Service board? Don't go and take the function of Nigeria Revenue Service. What are the power of Nigeria Revenue Service board? Don't go and take the power of Nigeria Revenue Service. So, Section 8 of that particular act, the NRS Act, state the power of Nigeria Revenue Service Board as follows. One of their power is to provide policy direction for the service. They are the one that implement a policy. This is what we need to do. These are the project we need to do. These are the things. So, Amarachi, what is your question?
Sir, please, you're too fast. I want to understand. This one we are talking about, is it the strategic power? Because you're also mentioning power. Is this one you want to say?
Yes,
Is it
the strategic power. Is the strategic power. Strategic power. The strategic power is carried out by the board, the governing board. Do you understand? So,
okay, thank you, sir.
Yes. So, number one, provide policy direction for the services. Number one, provide what? Policy direction for the services. Number two, supervise the management and administration of the services. While number three is to approve strategic and operational plan. Number four of the function is to carry out, to oversee financial management and corporate governance. You can see all these functions we mentioned, they relate to strategic decision. If you look at them very well, they are relating to strategic what? Decision. If you understand corporate governance very well, if you understand board of that, what does board of directors do in a company? It's the same thing as what this governing board are doing for the Nigeria Revenue Service. Number 5 is to approve human resources policy and condition of service. To approve human what? Human resources policies and condition of what? Service. So, to approve human resources policy and condition of service. To ensure accountability and transparency and efficiency in tax administration is part of their function. 500. So they also perform any other function as may be assigned by law from time to time. So all these functions I mentioned now, they are the function of governing board of Nigeria Revenue Service Board. Nigeria Revenue Service. Number 1 is to provide policy direction for the service. Number 2 is to supervise the management and administration of the service. Number 3 is to approve human resources. To approve human resources and condition of service. To approve human resources and condition of service. Number 4 is to perform any other function assigned to them from time to time. Number 5 is to ensure accountability. To ensure accountability, transparency, efficient in tax administration. All these are the function of Nigeria Revenue Service Board, governing board. Now, let's now look at, like I said, the board led by the executive chairman. Let's now look at the executive chairman. What does the executive chairman do? The executive chairman of Nigeria Revenue Service. Let's talk about the executive chairman. The executive chairman is the CEO, the chief executive officer, and account officer of the service. And he performs the following function. Is responsible for the following function. They are one of the function or responsibility of the executive chairman is to implement the policy of the board. Is to implement what? The policy of the board. Another function of the executive chairman is to approve, is to supervise officer and employees. Is the one that carry out administrative function for supervision of the officer of the Nigeria Revenue Service. One of the functions is also to ensure efficient tax administration. Function of the executive chairman is also to ensure efficient what? Tax administration. Why? One of the functions again of the executive chairman is to manage the day-to-day affair of the service. To manage the day-to-day affair of the service. So all these are the function of the executive chairman of the Nigeria Revenue Service. All these are the function of the executive chairman of Nigeria Revenue what? Service. Now, apart from the chairman, we are still under the Nigeria Revenue Service. There is a particular committee called Technical Committee under the Nigeria Revenue Service. They set up a committee called Technical Committee. What does the Technical Committee do? We want to look at that. What does the Technical Committee do? We want to look at that. Technical Committee of Nigeria Revenue Service is established by Section 14 of Nigeria Revenue Service Establishment Act 2025. If you look at that Section 14 of that act, it talks about the composition and the function of the Nigeria Revenue Service Technical Committee. Section 14 of that particular of Nigeria Revenue Service Establishment Act 2025 talk about the function, the composition, the function of Nigeria Revenue Service Technical Committee. Now, what are the composition of this technical committee? The technical committee consists of executive chairman, is the head of the technical committee. The executive chairman of Nigeria Revenue Service is the same as the chairman of the technical committee. We have a member specified by the Act, designated member, and senior officer of the service. They are part of the member of the technical committee. Part of the member, again, part of the member of technical committee the directors responsible for legal service in the Nigeria Revenue Service. The directors, that means the director of legal service department, is part of member of technical committee. The director of tax policy is also part of member of technical committee. So these are the member. This technical committee, all the member, they must have an experience, knowledge, specialized knowledge on tax. There must be a tax practitioner, tax professional, or legal practitioners that understand the tax law, because they will be the one that will help Nigeria Revenue Service to draft a technical policy for the operation of the service. Now, what are the functions of the technical committee? Section 15 states the function of technical committee. So, Section 15 of NRS Establishment Act states the function of technical committee as follows. One of their functions is to consider technical tax matter that require professional expertise. Is to consider technical tax matters that require what? Professional expertise. One of their functions again is to advise the governing board on tax administration. To advise the governing board on what? Tax administrations. Part of their function again is to make recommendation on tax policy and operational issues. To make recommendation on tax policy and operational issues. Part of their function again is to perform any other function assigned to them from time to time. To perform any other function assigned to them from time to time. So these are the functions of Nigeria Revenue Service Technical Committee. In Nigeria Revenue Service, we have looked at administrative function of Nigeria Revenue Service. We look at function of Nigeria Revenue Service Board. Now, we just look at function of Nigeria Revenue Service Technical Committee. So please, let's try to know the difference between these three functions. They are still under Nigeria Revenue Service. Now, still under Nigeria Revenue Service, what are the taxes administered by Nigeria Revenue Service? What are those taxes administered by Nigeria Revenue Service? As stated in the new tax law, if you look at the Nigeria Tax Act 2025, the following are the taxes that is collected by Nigeria Revenue Service. This is among the taxes. It's not all the taxes. There are some other taxes not stated here, like surcharge. It's part of taxes collected by Nigeria Revenue Service. So one of the taxes collected is company income tax, value added tax, petroleum profit tax, or hydrocarbon tax. They also collect development levy tax. Nigeria Revenue Service also collect withholding tax. They also collect stamp duties assigned to federal government. These are the taxes. These are among the taxes collected by Nigeria Revenue Service. So, ladies and gentlemen, one of the tax authority we have looked at now is Nigeria Revenue Service. We have done with that, which is under which is controlled by the federal government. Now, let's look at State Internal Revenue Service. When we talk about State Internal Revenue Service, they are the ones that collect tax on behalf of the state government. Example of State Internal Revenue Service is Lagos State Internal Revenue Service. Lagos State Internal Revenue Service. Somebody raise hand. You want to ask a question. What is your question? Hello? Okay, let's go ahead. So somebody send a chat box now that where is the material? We don't have the material. We don't do this. Please check your group chat. I sent the material this morning. I wake up as at 2 o'clock. I'm working on the material to ensure that it aligns with the new tax law. I wake up 2 o'clock, working, reviewing the material. I've not slept since 2 o'clock. So please check your group chat. Check your WhatsApp group chat. The material is there. So, State Internal Revenue Service. State Internal Revenue Service, like I said, they are the principal tax authority of each state of the federation, including Federal Capital Territory. Each state will have their own State Internal Revenue Service. Like me now, I'm from Ogun State. We have our own State Internal Revenue Service. It is called OGIRS, Ogun State Internal Revenue Service. Oyo State have their own too. Oyo State Internal, every state will have their own Internal Revenue Service. Even Federal Capital Territory, before it is Nigeria Revenue Service, formerly called FRA, that help them to collect tax. But right now, they have their own Internal Revenue Service called FCT Internal Revenue Service. They run like a state. So this State Internal Revenue Service, they are responsible for administration and collection of taxes assigned to the state under the Constitution and applicable tax legislation. This State Internal Revenue Service, let me repeat again, they are responsible for administration and collection of taxes assigned to the state under the Constitution and applicable tax legislation. Now, what is the establishment of this State Internal Revenue Service? What law establish it? The law that established State Internal Revenue Service is called Joint Revenue Board Act 2025. Joint Revenue Board Act 2025. Before, State Internal Revenue Service is established by Personal Income Act, Personal Income Tax Act. But based on the new law, when they want to talk about State Internal Revenue Service, you will find it under Joint Revenue Board Act, Establishment Act. It is no more under Personal Income Tax Act. Even Personal Income Tax Act has been repealed. It is now under Nigeria Tax Act. Now, this State Internal Revenue Service, they work in collaboration with Nigeria Revenue Service, with Joint Revenue Board, with Local Government Revenue Committee to ensure efficient and harmonized tax system. Now, let's look at the establishment. What law, what section of the Act established this State Internal Revenue Board? If we look at Section 26 of Joint Revenue Board Act 2025, it is that Section 26 that established State Internal Revenue Service. It stated that every state, including FCT, must have their own State Internal Revenue Service that will help them to administer taxes and levy other revenue assigned to the state under Constitution and applicable laws. And under the new law, which is Joint Revenue Board Act, Joint Revenue Board Establishment Act 2025, that Section 26, is saying that each of the State Internal Revenue Service should serve as a body corporate. That means a corporate entity that have a perpetual succession, and they can be sued and be sued in their own name. That means what that act is saying is State Internal Revenue Service now become a legal entity, though they are under the state government, but they operate on their own name. They are independent. They are not controlled by the State Ministry of Finance. Unlike the old law, which they are controlled by the State Ministry of Finance. Now, what are the objectives of State Internal Revenue Service? What are the objectives? The objective of State Internal Revenue Service is to ensure efficient tax administration of tax, efficient administration of state taxes. Part of the objective is to promote voluntary tax compliance. Is to promote voluntary what? Tax compliance. Part of the objective is to enhance internally generated revenue. Why part of the objective is to implement modern tax administration practice. That means to digitalize the tax system of a state. Protection of taxpayer rights is also part of the objective of State Internal Revenue Service. So now let's look at their function. Section 27 of JRB Establishment Act states the function of State Internal Revenue Service as follows. One of their functions is assessment of tax. They assess the tax under Nigeria Tax Act. That means personal income tax. They assess the personal income tax each individual will pay. They collect taxes, collection of taxes, collection of state taxes. They help state government to collect taxes. Apart from personal income tax, they collect stamp duties. They collect development levy, which is 100 naira per head. They also help them to collect business premises registration. For a new company, business premises is 10,000. For an existing company, it is 5,000. They enforce, one of their functions is also to enforce tax law under the state government. They help state government to enforce tax law When we talk about enforcement of the tax law, penalty and enforcement of the tax law, if you look at the new tax reform, NTA, the Nigeria Tax Administration Act, is the one that talk about enforcement and penalty of tax law. Is the one that state out the penalties if you fail to comply with the tax law. Take for instance, there is a particular section under NTA, Nigeria Tax Administration Act, that said if you give a contract to unregistered vendor, somebody that don't have taxpayer ID, a contractor that don't have tax identification number, taxpayer identification number, if you as a company, you give contract to that person, you are liable to a penalty of 5 million naira. Do you understand? Hello, are you with me? Hello?
We are with you, sir.
Okay, thank you. One of the functions of State Internal Revenue Service, taxpayer registration, they help state government to register taxpayer. In collaboration with Nigeria Revenue Service and Joint Revenue Board, part of their function is also to carry out taxpayer education. They educate the taxpayer. They carry out tax sensitization, education, and so on like that, on what they need to do, on their right, on how they need to file tax return, on what are the benefits available to them as a taxpayer, what are the tax relief available to them, what are the tax incentives that they need to take advantage. Investigation and audits. They carry out investigation and audits. They investigate, they audit taxpayer to ensure that taxpayer comply with the tax law. These are all the functions of Nigeria Revenue Service Acts. Nigeria Revenue Service. These are all the functions of State Internal Revenue Service. Sorry, it is a function of State Internal Revenue Service. State Internal Revenue Service to have a governing board. They have a governing board. The governing board is headed by the chairman too. And the major function of the governing board is to implement a policy that relates to the state tax administration. They carry out strategic decisions, they implement a policy. So that is it on State Internal Revenue Service. Let's look at Local Government Revenue Committee. Local Government Revenue Committee. The Local Government Revenue Committee is the revenue administration body established for each local government area in Nigeria. And they are responsible for assisting in the administration, coordination of revenue matter that fall within the constitution and statutory competence of the local government council. This local government revenue committee, they are the one that help local government to collect taxes and levy. That is what that statement is saying. Any taxes and levy that's supposed to be collected by the local government, it is this local government revenue committee that will help them to collect it. So, Section 16 of JRB, Joint Revenue Board Establishment Act, is the one that established Local Government Revenue Committee. And it states the composition of the Local Government Revenue Committee. That Section 17 state Section 17 of the Act state the composition. The chairman of the local government is part of the committee, Local Government Revenue Committee. It will double as the chairman of the Local Government Revenue Committee. Representative of local government councils, revenue officer or official responsible for the local government, which is supervisory councillor, The treasurers is part of the member. The treasurers, they are part of the member. So these are the member of local government revenue committee. What are the functions of local government revenue committee? Section 18 of the Act, of JRB Act, state the function of local government revenue committee as follows. Coordinating the collection of local government rates and levies authorized by the law. They are the one that coordinates the collection of local government rate and levy authorized by the law. They maintain revenue records. They maintain revenue what? Records. They advise local government on revenue matters. They also cooperate with state internal revenue service in revenue administrations. They carry out any other function assigned to them under Joint Revenue Board Establishment Act from time to time. So these are the function of local government revenue committees. This revenue committee is very important in the local government because it helps local government to improve internally generated revenue. It also ensures accountability in revenue collection. It's part of their importance, why we need them. They also promote voluntary compliance, and they advise local government authority on revenue matters. Now, Joint Tax Board, Joint Revenue Board. Joint Revenue Board is established by Section 3 of JRB Establishment Act 2025. What does the Joint Revenue Board do? They promote the harmonization of tax in Nigeria, most especially personal income tax. What does that mean? They ensure that the way we compute personal income tax in Lagos is the same thing as the way we compute it in Ogun State. It's the same thing as the way we compute it in Oyo State. They are the ones that give out the format on how personal income tax should be computed. What are the relief and allowances you can claim under personal income tax, like pension, like life assurance policy, like National Housing Fund. They are the ones that state that. Composition. What are their composition? The composition of this Joint Revenue Board. The executive chairman of Nigeria Revenue Service is also the chairman of Joint Revenue Board. Why? The chairman of each of the states' internal revenue service, including FCT, they are member of Joint Revenue Board. Representative of Federal Ministry of Finance is also part of member of Joint Revenue Board, and so on like that. So the composition are much. So I think Nigeria Customs Service too, representative of Nigeria Customs Service, they are part of member of Joint Revenue Board. So you can ask your question, Joy.
Okay, sir, please. Can you explain the Joint Revenue Board again? Because I didn't understand what exactly they do. Are they like states or their individual body? Are they like the state service or their individual bodies
So
separately?
what Joint Revenue Board do? They ensure we have an harmonized tax system. They resolve dispute between tax authority. Take for instance, if Lagos State Internal Revenue Service and Ogun State are fighting, Ogun State Internal Revenue Service on personal income tax, that is I'm the one that's supposed to collect the personal income tax. Who is going to resolve it for them? It's Joint Revenue Board. They ensure that we have an harmonized tax system. Harmonized tax system means the same taxes and levy collected by Ogun State should be the same collected by Lagos State. Lagos State should not have another tax that they are collecting that is different from Ogun State. Every state should have the same taxes and levy collected together. A state should not introduce a tax on its own. Who is responsible for that? Joint Revenue Board. Most especially, Joint Revenue Board, they are the one that now issued taxpayer ID to taxpayer. If a new taxpayer wants to register for tax, that unique taxpayer ID, it is issued by Joint Revenue Board. Joint Revenue Board, one of the things they also do, they compare our tax system with what is being practiced internationally. They ensure that we comply with what is done based on global standards. What other countries, how other countries are collecting tax. They ensure that we comply with the basis that they are using. Uniformity in tax system. So that is what Joint Revenue Board do. Before, they are called Joint Tax Board, but it is Section 3 of Joint Revenue Board Act that changed their name to Joint Revenue Board. Before, we call them JTB. And right now, they are called JRB. What are the functions of Joint Revenue Board? Section 5 of JRB Act states the function: promote harmonization and coordination of revenue administration through Nigeria. When we talk about Joint Revenue Board, what should come to your mind is tax what? Harmonization. Tax what? Harmonization. They are the ones that promote harmonization of tax. Even at the local government level, we should have harmonized tax system. What do we mean by that? Each local government, the taxes and levy they are collected should be the same in all countries. If you go to my in-law local government or Afia local government in Abia State, the taxes and levy that they are collecting from that local government should be the same with what Ikeja local government are collecting. Harmonized tax system. Who is going to ensure that we have that? It is Joint Revenue Board. So one of their functions is to promote harmonization and coordination of revenue administration through Nigeria. Is to facilitate cooperation among Nigeria Revenue Service, State Internal Revenue Service, and other revenue authorities. One of their functions is also to promote uniformity in the interpretation and application of the tax law and revenue law. How do we interpret tax law? We should have a uniformity. We should not have diverse opinion on interpretation of tax law. They also resolve administrative issue, dispute relating to administration of tax, relating to revenue administration among tax authority. If two state tax authority are fighting, who is going to resolve it for them? Joint Revenue Board. If two local governments are fighting on revenue, who is going to resolve it for them? Joint Revenue Board. So they resolve administrative issue, disputes relating to revenue administration among tax authorities. These are one of the functions of Joint Revenue Board. Another function of Joint Revenue Board is to develop and recommend policy for improving tax administration and revenue collection in Nigeria. So they also perform any other function assigned to them from time to time. They perform any other function assigned to them from what? Time to time. So we have power of Joint Revenue Board. Section 6 of the Act state the power of Joint Revenue Board. Section 6 of the Act state the power of Joint Revenue Board. One of their power is to issue guidelines within the scope of statutory mandates. Establish a committee or working group that will review the tax law. They coordinate initiative, joint initiative among revenue authorities. Why do we have Joint Revenue Board Act 2025? One of the reasons why we have a Joint Revenue Board Act, which is part of the tax reform, is to strengthen cooperation among tax authorities. To strengthen cooperation. Why do we have JRB Act? JRB Act, Joint Revenue Board, is part of the tax reform. A question can be asked, what are the objectives of Tax Reform Act 2025? This one I want to mention is part of the objective of Tax Reform Act 2025. The Tax Reform Act, how many tax law do we have under the Tax Reform Act? Who can tell me and name them? Oh yeah, how many do we have?
So I'll come again with the question.
How many Tax Reform Act 20, the law, the acts we have under the Reform Act 2025? How many tax acts do we have?
We have four.
Four, sir.
Four.
Four.
Okay.
4 tax.
Oh yeah, name them
Yes.
the purpose in which they are established. Who can? Let's start from NTA, Nigeria Tax Act 2025. What does Nigeria Tax Act want to establish? Nigeria Tax Act is talking of what are those allowable expenses, disallowable expenses. What do we have under? How do we compute personal income tax? What are the rate of personal income tax? What are the rate of company income tax? How do we share value added tax? Nigeria Tax Act basically talk about different type of tax that we have. It talk about company income tax. It talk about personal income tax. It talk about petroleum profit tax. It talk about value added tax. And it look at some changes regarding to those tax. It recommends some changes to them in terms of capital allowance. Nigeria Tax Act, NTA, also introduced due rate for computing capital allowance. He introduced due rate for computing personal income tax. He introduced due rate for computing company income tax. All those ones, we should know that. Nigeria NTA, what does NTA for? Nigeria Tax Administration Act. What is the purpose of NTA? Why do we have Nigeria Tax Administration Act? Nigeria Tax Administration Act is the one that states the penalties under the tax law. Is the one that talk about how do we file tax return? What are the timeline for filing tax return? What are the penalties? How do we enforce tax law? How do we collect tax? Nigeria Revenue Service Act. What does that one say? That one addressed to who? Nigeria Revenue Service, Federal Inland Revenue Service. Is the one that established Federal Nigeria Revenue Service, formerly called Federal Inland Revenue Service. He talk about the function of Federal Inland Revenue Service, the function of their board, the power of their board. How does the employee carry out their own responsibility. How do we conduct tax audits? Joint Revenue Board talk about State Internal Revenue Board, State Internal Revenue Service. They talk about State Internal Revenue Service. They talk about JRB, their function, and so on like that. So as we proceed from the class, we will know more about this 4 Tax Reform Act that we have. But the objective of this Tax Reform Act, the objective of this Tax Reform Act is to strengthen cooperation among tax authority. We need to cooperate. Tax authority need to cooperate. They need to work together. Federal Tax Authority, NRS, they need to work with State Internal Revenue Service. State Internal Revenue Service, they need to work with Local Government Revenue Committee. Everybody need to collaboration. We need collaborations. Another objective of this Tax Reform Act is to reduce multiple taxation and administration conflicts. We have too much of multiple tax, most especially at the local government level and state level. Now, this Tax Reform Act, it has harmonized the tax we should collect. Another objective is to promote consistency tax administration across the government. Another objective is to improve information sharing, digital integration. While another objective of this Tax Reform Act is to enhance voluntary tax compliance. So that is it. That is what we have on Joint Revenue Board. Under the old law, the Joint Tax Board that we have, the act that established the Joint Tax Board under the old law is Personal Income Tax Act. But under the new law, the act that established Joint Revenue Board is Joint Revenue Board Establishment Act. Under the old law, the Joint Tax Board that we have focus mainly on personal income tax administration. But under this new law, they now have a broader function on revenue administration across Nigeria. They don't focus only on personal income tax alone. They now have a broader function. So now we have looked at Joint Revenue Board. There is another tax regulator that we need to talk about. It's called Tax Ombudsman in Nigeria. This Tax Ombudsman is an independent official or office. This Tax Ombudsman is established by NTA, Nigeria Tax Act. Section 80 of that act established Tax Ombuds. What does this Tax Ombuds do? They investigate complaint made by the taxpayer against unfair or arbitrary or delay action by the tax authority. That means Tax Ombudsman, they receive complaint from the taxpayer. Complaint that taxpayer have to complain against tax authority, they receive it. Another thing tax ombuds do, they ensure transparency, accountability, and good governance in tax administrations. Tax ombuds, they also provide mediation, recommendation for resolving tax dispute without need for litigation. So now let's look at the function in details. Let's look at the function of tax ombuds in details. What are the functions of tax ombuds in details? Number one function of tax ombudsman is to receive and investigate compliance from taxpayer. Number two function, as stated in the law, is to recommend corrective action to tax authorities. While number three is to promote fair treatment and ensure compliance with the tax law and administrative rules. Number 4 is to provide advice, guidance to the taxpayer on their right and obligation. Number 6 is to report findings to the Nigeria Revenue Service and other oversight. So let me explain the tax ombudsman. I have explained them last week. If tax authority and taxpayer has a dispute, if tax authority is not satisfied with the assessment given, if taxpayer is not satisfied with the assessment raised by the tax authority, before taxpayer can proceed to court, taxpayer can refer the case to tax ombuds. Tax ombuds will call the two parties. It will call the tax authority, it will call the taxpayer, and they will mediate. They will like to resolve the dispute without involving litigation. They can even appeal on behalf of taxpayer to the tax authority, so that tax authority can review the assessment of the taxpayer. So that tax authority can review the assessment sent to the taxpayer. They can mediate, appeal. However, when a tax ombudsman make a decision or recommendation, bring my bag. The recommendation is not binding on the tax authority. Tax authority have a right either to accept or not to accept. I've said that last. If taxpayer is not satisfied with the decision made by tax ombudsman, taxpayer too, they have a right to refer the case to a body called Tax Appeal Tribunal. Tax Appeal what? Tribunal. Like I said last week, from Tax Appeal Tribunal, it will refer to Federal High Court. From Federal High Court to Court of Appeal. From Court of Appeal to Supreme Court. I mentioned that while I was doing introduction to tax last week. So this is what we need to know on tax ombuds. Tax ombudsman is not a court, but it is an office that was established by the new tax law. And tax ombudsman cannot impose penalties or interest. Tax ombudsman cannot review an assessment that taxpayer go and pay this money. They have to seek the consent of the tax authority. They have to seek the consent of tax authority. So that is what we need to know on tax ombudsman. Now, the next area we need to look at is called efficiency of tax administration. Efficiency of what? Tax administration. What are the efficiency of tax administration? For us to have efficient tax administration, this tax authority we have mentioned earlier, for them to carry out their function efficiently, what do we need to put in place? For them to do their job right. Number 1, payment processing and collection. The payment processing and collection should be based on modern technology. The payment processing and collection should be based on what? Modern what? Technologies. Record keeping. Taxpayer, tax authority should partner with relevant agency to ensure that taxpayer record, taxpayer record, they keep their record very well. Do you understand? Exchange of information. For us to have efficient tax administration, tax authority need to partner together to exchange information. Like now, Lagos State and Ogun State, they share boundaries. They need to exchange information. If somebody is residing in Ogun State and is claiming that he has paid tax in Lagos State, Ogun State can write letter to Lagos State to know whether truly that person has paid the tax. Exchange of information. Enforcement of tax law. For us to have efficient tax administration, the tax law, we need to enforce it. If anybody go against the tax law, that person should be sanctioned. That person should be prosecuted. That person should be charged to court. And court should make judgment. Court should show there should be speed trial of tax evader. There should be speed trial of tax offender. If we have this, we will have efficient tax administrations. Funding of tax authority. For tax authority to do their job very well, they need to give them fund. They should pay them very well. This one is saying, if we give them good salary, they will not receive bribe. But me, I did not accept this. Even if they are paying them 5 million naira per month, if they are paying the least grade 5 million naira per month, they will still collect something. That is Nigeria for you. No, that's bad. I bought for you. So we should have that adequate funding. Easy payment of taxes. Taxpayers should be able to pay tax with easy payment. They should not undergo stress. With this, we have efficient tax administration. Revenue autonomy too. Taxpayers should have a revenue autonomy. They should have a right to collect. Tax authority should have a revenue autonomy. They should be able to generate revenue on their own. This one particularly refers to local government. State government should not be controlling local government. Let local government generate their own revenue, collect their own taxes. Don't assist them to collect their autonomy on their own. So these are efficiency of tax administration. You can be asked, you should explain the efficiency of tax administration in Nigeria, or importance of efficiency of tax administration in Nigeria. So please, let's take note of this too. Now, the next area we are going is challenges of tax administration and collection in Nigeria. What are the challenges of tax administration and collection in Nigeria? Okay, go ahead with your question.
Okay, sir. Good morning, sir. My question from one of those points for efficiencies of tax administration, you said what's it called? Funding for tax refunds. So I want to know, is it possible to get tax refund from NRS? I thought the popular belief is that whatever it is that has entered government purses, it's difficult for you to get out back again. So is it possible for someone to get taxpayer to get a refund?
Thank you for that good question. If you read the new tax law very well, Tax Administration Act, you talk about tax refund too. Tax Administration Act, you talk about the tax refund. Tax refund. How do we process tax refund? What is the timeline for getting tax refund? In the new tax law, if a taxpayer apply for tax refund within 90 days, FRS should finalize the tax refund process. There are steps to follow if you want to get tax refund. If you apply for tax refund, that means you have overpaid tax. FRS will come and audit you to know truly whether you are due for that tax refund. If they audit your account, if they see that truly you are due for that tax refund, the new law say within 90 days, you should be able to get your payment for your tax refund. Tax refund normally arise when you overpay your tax. How does that happen? Maybe you're a service company. You render service. From the service you render to somebody, that person deduct withholding tax. The withholding tax the person deduct. At the end of the day, when you are now doing your profit and loss for your company, the company income tax you compute is less than the withholding tax you have. That means they have over deduct withholding tax now. That means you have excess withholding tax. You can apply for tax refund based on that. The new law say right now, if a taxpayer apply for tax refund, tax authority should finalize the tax refund within 90 days, which is 3 months. Under the old law, if you apply for tax refund 1 year, they are still on the tax refund. Based on this, FRS now established a new department, a new unit that has to deal with receiving of tax refund, auditing of tax refund, processing of tax refund, so that to align with the new tax law, to align with the Nigeria Tax Act, to align with the Nigeria Tax Administration Act. Even if you look at NTAA very well, when they are talking about value-added tax, they say if a taxpayer apply for value-added tax refund, that tax refund should be done within 30 days. And remember, if you read the new tax law very well, I can't remember the section, but there's a particular section there. 30 days in the case of value-added tax. How does value-added tax refund happen? There are some companies, if you want to sell good to them, law says you should not charge VAT, like foreign embassy, like non-governmental organization, NGO. Law says you should not charge VAT. And there are some good, they are VAT exempted. While you are buying those goods, maybe they have charged you VAT. You now have excess input VAT. You can apply for value-added tax refund, since you don't have any output VAT to reduce the input VAT. The law says within 30 days, they should be able to audit your account, to audit your revenue, to know whether you're actually due for that refund, and they should pay you. Part of the new tax law, one of the reform the new tax law do is the issue of tax refund. So I hope your question has been answered. Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Now, challenges of tax administration and tax collection in Nigeria. What are the challenges of this tax administration? What challenges does tax authority face? Is different from challenges of taxation. No? Last week, while we are doing introduction to tax, do we mention challenges of taxation or problems of taxation in Nigeria? Do we mention that? Hello? Do we mention that last week?
Yes, sir, we mentioned it.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm happy to hear that. When we talk about poor tax administration,
yes,
when we talk about lack of accountability of tax revenue,
yes, lack of public
when we talk about multiplicity of taxes,
yes.
So please, the earlier the better. Let's start reading. For those who don't attend that lecture last week, the video lecture is now online. Go and listen to the video lecture. I've sent the material. I've even sent the revised material based on the new tax law. Abi? So please, let's go and read it. Introduction to tax is very important. It will give us solid foundation for tax. When we have a solid foundation in tax, while we are doing other topic, it will not be so difficult. It will be very easy. But when we don't have the solid foundation, we don't know anything on introduction to tax, we don't know anything on tax administration, By the time we move to calculation, it will look somehow. So this one now, challenges of tax administration in Nigeria. What are the challenges of tax administration in Nigeria? Number one, lack of overall understanding of role of taxation in national development. We don't know the role of taxation. We don't know that people, tax is the one that will develop our economy. Revenue from crude oil cannot develop our economy because one day, that particular stream, that oil well, it may dry. So we need to develop tax. When I was doing my MSc in accounting, it's part of my project, the role of taxation on national development of Nigeria. So another challenges of taxation in Nigeria is lack of sufficient political support for tax administration. Another challenge is low level of business activity in the economy. If people are not doing business, how will you collect tax? Are you going to collect tax from companies that have closed down? Are you going to ask them to come and pay tax? Government need to support business development. Government need to support entrepreneur. Government need to ensure that there's a conducive environment for those who are doing business to strive to do business. There is adequate security. There is good electricity. There is a good road network. If government put all this in place, they will be able to do business. By the time they do business, you can ask them to pay tax. Like informal sector outside the tax net. My major headache, when I was writing an article in taxation, I wrote one article last year in taxation. It's about taxation of informal sector. Taxation of informal sector. I even wrote, if Nigeria government are sincere about how to tax this informal sector, our tax administration should be reformed in a sense that state internal revenue service, every state should have 2 state internal revenue service. One should be dealing with formal sector, those companies that pay tax for their employees. Why another one should deal directly with who? Informal sector. We have a large number of informal sector outside. One-man trader, sole proprietorship, mechanic, bricklayer, electrician, plumbers. All these people, they are the informal sector. They receive a lot of revenue contract, which they don't pay tax on that revenue. Some of them are not even in the tax net. Some of them don't have taxpayer ID. So there is a particular section in the new tax law that said anybody that don't have taxpayer ID, the account should be the account should be suspended, the bank account. But that section is yet to be activated. So that bank now should supposed to be sending message to those who don't have taxpayer ID that they need to come and be upgrading their account by bringing their NIN plus their taxpayer ID, so that everybody can be on the tax net. By the time they are on the tax net, if tax authority notice that this person is not paying tax, they can have a way where they can trace them. Verifiable address. I hope my explanation is clear.
Very clear, sir.
So, one of the challenges of tax administration we have is low level of voluntary compliance. If we say people should comply to tax law voluntarily, they will not comply. If you don't enforce, tax need enforcement. If you say, comply voluntarily, file your return, do this, they will not do until you enforce. That is Nigeria for you. You have to enforce. So tax authority need to work more on the enforcement of tax law. Knock their door. Don't stay in your office. Go and knock their door. If you are expecting that they will come to your office, they will start paying tax, you are deceiving yourself. Go and start knocking their door. Trace them. That is what that one means. So these are the challenges of tax administration in Nigeria. So ladies and gentlemen, this is all what we need to know on tax administration in Nigeria. So do we have any question, any observation? Do you have any question on this? So in the absence of no question on this, let's look at a short topic called multiple taxation. Did we look at multiple taxation last week? Have we looked at multiple taxation last week while we are doing introduction to tax?
No, sir. No,
No.
sir.
So let's look at it. Multiple taxation. Hello, can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can see it.
On the multiple taxation in Nigeria.
Yes.
So, multiple taxes in Nigeria. What is multiple tax? Multiple tax is a tax regime under which various or similar type of taxes are imposed by taxpayer by different tiers of government. Multiple taxes is a tax regime under which various or similar type of taxes are imposed by different tiers of government. In another way, multiple taxes means a situation, a tax system where same income is being taxed in the hand of the same taxpayer by different tiers of government. What do we mean by this? We mean one taxpayer pay tax on the same income to federal government. On that same income again, he pay tax to state government. On that same income again, he pay tax to local governments. On one income, he's paying different tax. That is multiple tax. Too much of tax. Multiple tax is different from double taxation. Double taxation simply means a system where an income is subjected to tax in the hand of different tax authority in different countries. An income is subjected to tax in the hand of the same taxpayer by different tax authority in different countries. When we talk about double taxation, it involves two or more countries. But in the case of multiple taxation, it occurs within what? Within a country. Do you understand? Do you understand?
Hello, sir. Please, can
Yeah.
you elaborate more on the differences between the multiple taxes and double taxation?
Okay, let me give illustration. Double taxation means you are from Nigeria, you travel to UK to go and render a service.
Okay.
When they pay you for that service, UK government will collect tax on that income. When you take the income back to Nigeria, Nigeria government will want you to come and pay tax on that income again, despite that you have paid tax on it in UK. That kind of tax is called double taxation. It involves two or more countries, two different tax authorities. One is in Nigeria, one is in UK. But in the case of multiple taxation, within Nigeria, federal government is a tier of government. They collect tax on the same income you earn. State government again collect tax on the same income you earn. Local government collect tax on the same income you earn. That is multiple tax. So, type of multiple taxes in Nigeria. Type of multiple tax that we have. What are the type of multiple tax we have in Nigeria? We have entertainment tax. entertainment tax is one of the type of multiple tax. When you go to cinema to watch a movie, why they give you ticket, there's a particular tax called entertainment tax for those who is going for cinema to watch a movie. So there's a particular tax. In that tax, we have Nigeria Censor Board. They collect their own tax. State too have their own state censor board. They collect their own entertainment tax. On the same ticket, you will pay 2 different entertainment tax. So it's part of multiple tax. Road tax. In some states, all those commercial vehicles, state government give them daily tickets to pay. Local government too, we impose daily ticket on them. Apart from ticket paid to state government and local government, they will also pay for their union. That is double tax. Market taxes and levy. In some markets, states will have their own ticket that they will collect. Local government will have their own ticket that they will collect, daily ticket, for those who are, for all those public markets. Car park permit fee. State government have a car park agency that regulate car park. Local government too, they will come. They will say they want to collect extension where you are parking. Sales tax. Sales tax means value added tax. Federal government, Nigeria Revenue Service collect value added tax on behalf of government. Some states, apart from value added tax, they introduce consumption tax in which they collect on the same income, on the same good that consumer buy. They will charge value added tax, consumption tax simultaneously. That is a multiple taxation. What are the causes of multiple taxation in Nigeria? What are the causes of multiple taxation in Nigeria? Lack of funding, particularly for most states. One of the reasons why some people believe, if you look at tax, if you have done a lot of research in tax, if you do a lot of research on this multiple taxation, some scholars believe that this multiple taxation, some of them are illegal. They are not even in the law. They are not stated in the law. They are not stated in the constitution. That state government or local government just introduce this as a means of improving their internally generated revenue. So one of the causes that we have multiple taxes, lack of funding of state government. So this means there is a belief that state government don't receive enough allocation from the federal government. That is the reason why they have to look for a way to generate revenue internally by introducing some illegal taxes from some form of unstructured taxes or undocumented taxes. Another causes of multiple taxation, lack of local government autonomy. Local government, they don't have autonomy to stand on their own, to generate revenue on their own. They are being controlled by the state. Despite the Supreme Court judgment, like I said yesterday in one of my lectures, despite the Supreme Court judgment on local government autonomy, that judgment is yet to be implemented. Some of the key decision making the judgment, they are yet to implement it. State governments still control local governments. So since local government don't have autonomy, so it will result into multiple taxation, because revenue that local government supposed to collect from federal government, state government will divert those revenue to their own purse. So local government will not have any option than to look for revenue internally. So that can lead to blocking of roads, using of touts, doing a lot of illegality, all in the name of generating revenue. They can even create a traffic offense task force where local government sue, they will now be towing vehicle, parking on the road, doing a lot of rubbish for those who have a vehicle, who have a car, all in the name of generating revenue. Another causes of multiple taxation, multiplicity of revenue agency. We have too much of revenue agency. Too much, especially in the states. This one we collect, this one we come, this one we collect. In a particular state, it happens to me. One of my boss want to build in a particular state. Before he start building, he has spent nothing less than 125 million. I'm the one he's sending to spend the money, to go and pay the money. You have to pay for approval. You have to pay for environmental. You have to pay for material testing. You have to pay for this. You have to pay for this. At the end of the day, before he start laying foundation, he has spent nothing less than 125 million. Because the area he want to build is an eyebrow area. It's one of the major areas in that particular city. He has spent nothing less than 125 million. He has not started building. No? By the time he finished the building, so can you come and preach to him that this is the house rent you need to collect? Oh? When he has spent about 800 million, almost a billion to build. So multiplicity of revenue agency. This one will come and collect. This one will come and collect. Overlapping taxing rights as contained in the Constitution. Some of the taxing right of local government, state government overlap it, they hijack it. Like advertisement permit, it is collected by local government, but state government collect it. Land use charge supposed to be collected by local government, state government collect it. So many like that. That is one of the causes of multiple taxes in Nigeria. Manual tax administration system. The tax administration system we are using in Nigeria is manual, most especially at the state and local government level. Assuming they have automated tax system, all this will be addressed through the use of technology. They will have known that this kind of tax, it is federal government that's supposed to collect it. This kind of tax is a local government. This kind of tax is a state government. Because our tax system, most especially in the state and local government, is manual. So these are the causes of multiple taxes in Nigeria. Sorry, before I entertain any question now, I have to round up this lecture. I will now entertain questions together. So please, you can note your question down. Method of collection of multiple taxes. How do we collect multiple taxes in Nigeria? One of the methods is mounting of roadblock. Sometimes they will block the road. Most especially, this one is most especially carried out by state government, local governments. They will block the road. They will be checking whether this vehicle has paid this levy or he has not paid. Use of revenue agent or consultant. Some state government, they use revenue agent, third party to collect all these taxes. All those politicians, they will serve as a revenue agent. So what are the impact of multiple taxes in Nigeria business? Multiple taxes, some people believe is the one killing SME, small, medium enterprise in Nigeria. What are the impacts of these multiple taxes? Multiple taxes will make business operation to become very cumbersome in Nigeria. Multiple taxes make business operation become very cumbersome. It make it very hard to have a business because you'll be thinking of the tax you pay even while you have not started making profit. They don't want to know whether you have made profit, you have not made profit. All they know is just come and pay. Multiple taxes result into high mortality rate of SME. Most of the SME, research have shown that the reason why most of the SME collapse is because of multiple taxes. Multiple taxes discourage foreign direct investment. Some people also conduct research. They say most of the foreign investors, they don't want to come to Nigeria to come and invest because of too much of all these multiple taxes we have. Most of these multiple taxes, even if they collect it, it will not go to government purse. Most of the taxes collected through blocking of the road, it will not go to government purse. Through traffic offense, it will not go to government purse. So multiple taxes discourage foreign direct investment. Multiple taxes can lead to high rate of unemployment, loss of human capital. People will lose their job because some of the company can relocate to neighboring countries because of multiple taxes. So their staff in Nigeria, they have to lay them off. So these are the impact of multiple taxes on Nigeria business. What are the solutions to multiple taxes? Possible solution to multiple taxes. All these multiple taxes we mentioned, all these problems we mentioned in these multiple taxes, what are the solutions to them? Number one is for us to review the current statutory provision. The current constitution. Constitution need to be amended. Even when you read the new tax law, there are some sections in the tax law that those sections cannot be implemented without amendment to this constitution. So in this new tax law, there are some sections that is yet to be activated because constitution is yet to be amended. So for those sections to be implemented, activated, constitution need to be amended. So constitution need to be amended. Since 1999, can you imagine somebody that was born in 1999? Some of them now, they are now married man and married woman 26 years ago. Abi, is it 27 years ago or 26 years? Some of them are now responsible man, responsible woman. This constitution need amendment. We cannot just be going like this. A lot of flaws that are in the constitution, they need to amend it. So one of the possible solutions to multiple taxes is they need to review the constitution so that it will address the issue of overlapping taxi right, the scope of taxes that can be collected by each tiers of government. We need to make available to the local government all revenue due to them. That means we need to ensure that local government have autonomy. If I were you, if I want to make this, I would say there should be speed implementation of Supreme Court judgment on local government autonomy. Speed implementation of Supreme Court judgment on local government autonomy. Adequate funding of various agencies. Government should fund their agency. They should not establish agency by telling them, oh yeah, go and be looking for money. I will not give you money. It's the money you see that I will use to fund you. It's not done like that. There are some agencies, they are not solely responsible for revenue generation. They are responsible to ensure that everything is done in an orderly manner. By the time you now say they should be collecting revenue, they will lose interest in their oversight function. So we need to look at that. Another solution, we need to ensure that we have updated database of the taxpayer in Nigeria. We need to maintain an updated database of taxpayer in Nigeria. We need to also limit the number of revenue agency. The revenue agency number should be limited. So these are also part of the solution. We need to have automated tax collection process. These are also part of the solution. Automated tax collection process. Our tax collection process should be on digitalized tax process, using IT, using software. All those manual, people play on the manual. They take advantage of manual. You understand? Government lost a lot of revenue from manual system. Now, what are the taxes and levy that can be collected by each tier of government? What are the taxes and levy that can be collected by each tier of government? Let's look at taxes and levy that can be collected by each tier of government. For federal government, they will collect company income tax, education tax, no more education tax. This area, please, I will review it. I will send you the revised material. They will collect petroleum profit tax, value-added tax, capital gain tax, stamp duties, development levy, custom duties. All these are the taxes collected by federal government. Excise duties. Let me repeat again. What are the taxes and levy collected by federal government? Company income tax, petroleum profit tax, value-added tax, capital gain tax, stamp duties, custom and excise duties. These are the taxes and levy collected by who? Federal government. What are the taxes and levy collected by state governments? Personal income tax, withholding tax on individual transaction, capital gain tax on individual transaction, stamp duties on individual transaction, road taxes, business premises registration for a new company, 10,000, for an existing company, 5,000. Development levy tax. Market taxes and levies. These are the taxes collected by state governments. Let me repeat again. Taxes and levy collected by state governments. Withholding tax on individual transaction. Capital gain tax. On individuals. Stamp duties on individual transactions. Road taxes. Business premises registration. Development levy. Market taxes and levies. All these are the taxes and levy collected by who? State governments. What are the taxes and levy collected by local governments? What are the taxes and levy collected by local governments? Shop and kiosk rate, tenement rates, marriage, death, birth certificate registration fee, slaughter slab fee, naming of street fee, market motor park fee, illegal parking fee, radio and television license fee. All these are the taxes and levy collected by local government. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is where I'm going to stop today. I've tried my best. So by next week, we move to another topic. Thank you for having me. So in case you have any question, you can ask. Hello, do you have any question? Hello, are you with me? Hello, everyone.
Hi, sir. And
Okay.
he can't even hear me.
Okay, thank you for having me.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Please, I want to know. We're told that development tax was introduced by the new tax law to replace all the deleted tax. Please, what are those deleted tax? I only know tertiary education tax.
Okay. We have another one called technology tax, NICDA. National Information Technology Development Agency levy. We call it technology tax or NICTA levy. It replaces it. It also replaces police contribution, police development levy. It also replaces it. So I will send you I can send you the list of tax development levy replaced. I can send it to you. I can send it to your group chat. You will see the percentage. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, sir, please, my other question is this. Does it mean that the new tax reform did not solve that problem of multiple taxation or double taxation?
Well, the new tax reform is, we just start the implementation this year. We hope maybe it's going to solve the problem of multiple taxation. Because one of the objectives of that new tax reform is to harmonize tax system.
Yes.
By the time we have an harmonized tax system, we may not have the issue of multiple taxation again, which some states they have adopted with the harmonized tax table recommended by the new tax law. As I'm talking to you right now, out of the 36 states, maybe like 6 states or 7 states, I don't know the actual number, that they have signed the harmonized tax law in their own state law. They have signed it to align with the new tax law. But the giant states, we have some states that they are the major states we have in Nigeria. They are the ones generating the major revenue. Because of their own personal interest, because they are their own selfish interest, it will not favor them. They have not signed the harmonized tax law, which I expect them to be the first to sign. Do you understand? So, but it will not favor them. By the time they have the harmonized tax law, they have yet to sign it. So, that is the thing. So, there are some key states which I expect to have signed that harmonized tax law. They are yet to do that. It's some other states. So that is that. Any other question?
Thank you, sir.
So in case of any other question, in case of no question, so thank you for having me. Have a nice day.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.